See, here's the thing. For this week I originally wanted to play Revenant. Revenant is a game from 1999. I've never played it before, but from the pictures it looks to be basically a Diablo clone, which in and of itself is not bad. I've played the Diablo games. I like them. I'd happily play a clone if it was good enough. But that's the thing. What if this isn't good enough? What if it's not a good Diablo clone, or a good game in general? To be honest, I'm still reeling after my experiences from the Seventh Guest. I've never played such a bad game before, and I really need a game that I can absolutely enjoy and take my mind off of things. And I don't know if Revenant will do that. I just don't know what it was about this game, but it made me go absolutely postal.
Konnichiwa, minasan. Watashi no na wa Gemini desu. When I was looking through Steam trying to find a game good enough to erase the Seventh Guest from my memories, I thought I had found it in this game, Postal 2. I've since played it and finished it, which I believe makes it the first game I've played for this show to completion since Out There Somewhere, if you can even count that as a game being so short. After having played it, however, my impression was... My opinion was so... in fact, that I couldn't even come up with anything to say about why it was so... I even went so far as to move on to another game, intending to forget about this one and write about something I knew, but then decided, no, that's not right. That's not fair of me to do to you. So I came back to Postal 2, determined to fight my writer's block and try to come up with, 10 minutes or so worth of good, solid reasoning as to why I found this game so... Doing well so far, I've just about covered a whole minute. Well, shall we talk a bit about the game's background?
Postal 2 was developed by Running with Scissors, a group headed by a man named Vince Desi, who actually features as a character in the game. It was published by numerous people, depending on where you played it. In the game's original release in 2003, it was published by Whiptail Interactive here in North America. In Russia, it was published by Akela, while the game's later digital re-release was published by Running with Scissors themselves. As the title suggests, it is the sequel to the 1997 game Postal, and none of the people I just mentioned published that original game. That was instead done by a group called Ripcord Games. Now, let's take a moment to address the elephant in the room, shall we? Postal is of the type sort of like Grand Theft Auto. It's controversial just for the sake of being controversial. Personally, I don't really care. I'm mature and enlightened enough to know that this is just a video game, nothing more, nothing less. In fact, every time you load up the game, a disclaimer to that very effect pops up before the game starts. As such, I intend to comment on this and any other controversial games just like I would any other game on this show. Are we clear? Good. Now let's see how far into this episode I can get without calling the game Portal instead of Postal.
In Postal 2, you play as the Postal Dude. And no, he's not called that because we don't know his name. That is his actual name, apparently. The Postal Dude. Anyway, the object is to play through a week in the dude's life while accomplishing everyday tasks each day. Sounds simple enough, right? Don't be so sure. As you start the game on Monday, your wife makes it abundantly clear she hates your guts. Champ the dog mistakes your leg for a fire hydrant. Your car won't start, though, as we'll get into later, it wouldn't really matter if it did. Then when you collect your paycheck, you find out you've been fired from your job at the game development company Running with Scissors. Hey, that's... But... Aren't they... well, alright then. Then a bunch of anti-game protesters suddenly decide they want your head. And that's just the first task and the first day of what will turn out to be, shall we say, a fairly chaotic week in the life of this particular dude. The publishers aren't the only thing that changed from Postal 1 to 2. Whereas the first Postal was an isometric third-person shooter, its sequel moved to first-person. There are a variety of weapons available to you in the game, both melee and ranged, and some even have 2 modes of attack, like a napalm weapon, which can launch an instantly exploding projectile, or one which bounces around the world for a time before exploding, leaving behind a flaming trail of napalm as it does so, and a machete, which can hack and slash just about anybody it comes across to pieces, as you might expect, but can also be thrown like a boomerang, and I do mean boomerang. When thrown, the machete will fly around the area, slicing everything in its path as it does so, and, provided there's enough room around you, it will come back to you. There are also many inventory items available, including cats. Yes, you heard right, you can have cats in your inventory, and they're possibly the most disturbing of inventory items. Basically, you take a shotgun and shove it up the cat hole. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened there. Anyway, there is one item you can pick up which, rather annoyingly, cannot be added to your inventory, and that's health pickups, which means if you come across one and you're already at max health, you better commit its location to memory, because if you're running low on health and you don't know where the nearest health box is, you're pretty much out of luck. Moving from place to place is done entirely on foot, and while there is a map to help you navigate, it can still be time-consuming, especially as the world is divided into several areas, each separated by a loading zone. There are many vehicles scattered throughout the area, but they do absolutely nothing, which is a pity. I would have liked to see at least some of them have some use in the game, maybe as some kind of fast travel system instead of them being, well, you know.
Useless exploding props.
Now, I'm playing what is basically the latest, greatest, most up-to-date version on Steam, and there are a total of 15 difficulty settings in it. Now, I've played on the easiest setting as well as average to get some kind of comparison between difficulties, and from what I've seen, the difficulty settings don't seem to affect the NPC's health, as in both cases, many people take several shots from my pistol or my machine gun before going down. Even a point-blank shotgun blast usually isn't enough for an insta-kill unless you're lucky enough to score a headshot, and trust me, you'll know when that happens. Instead, the difficulty settings seem to affect the weapons carried by anyone who attacks you. On the average setting, your attackers carry the weapons you might expect them to carry. Police officers have pistols with them, rednecks have shotguns, etc. On Libre mode, the easiest setting, every NPC that attacks you will do so with shovels, baseball bats, police batons, knuckle dusters. Basically, they only attack you with melee weapons. Save for the odd exception or two who will happily chuck a Molotov cocktail in my direction. While your goal each day is to accomplish a certain list of tasks, there's no time limit to doing so, and you can knock them out in any order you choose. When you're doing things like cashing your paycheck at the bank or buying milk, there will more often than not be a line of people in front of you. Now, the game's trailer on Steam, Postal 2, is described as being only as violent as you are, and it's in these situations I find where that tagline really comes into play the most. You could choose to be peaceful about it and wait for the line to move and eventually get up to the counter yourself. Or you could be more aggressive and kick everyone out of the way, or just whip out a shotgun and blast the face off anyone and everyone in the room. The choice is up to you. Postal 2 is also more humorous than its predecessor, or at least it tries to be. When going on a shooting spree, for instance, the Postal Dude will often make Duke Nukem-esque comments like,
My president is Chuck Heston. Here's your rebate, you damn dirty apes.
or when throwing your machete around, he'll often remark that,
It's like bowling, only cooler.
both of which I found are good for the odd chuckle. But for the most part, I didn't really find Postal 2 all that funny. Now, again, to be clear, I'm not saying I found it particularly offensive. I'm simply saying I didn't find myself laughing as much as I thought I would after first watching the trailers for the game. I do like a good non-linear open-world game. But just like in the intro to this episode, there's that key word again. Good. While Postal 2 isn't necessarily bad, it's not that good either. It's, well, I suppose it really comes down to why you want to play it. If you like to play games for their story, don't even bother with Postal 2. The story is threadbare at best. Instead, it strikes me as the sort of game you use to work out your frustrations. Play the single-player campaign and sick champ on that damn marching band while you mow down the nearest group of protesters with a rocket launcher. Or grab some friends and play the multiplayer mode. But apart from that, the game just isn't as enjoyable as I thought it would be. It's just, well, you know.
Well, minasan, we come to the end of another episode and essentially another disappointing game. I suppose the bright side of it is it helped me forget about the seventh guest like I wanted, just not in the way I'd hoped. Now, I am a big Trekkie, so surely this won't let me down. Well, there's only one way to find out. Keep your eyes peeled for the next episode of the Low Budget Gaming Show. Best way you can do that, click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all the goings on here at Jim and I Does Games. And while you're doing that, make sure and like and share the episode as well. And please do leave a comment either here or on the Facebook or Twitter pages. I'd really love to hear from you guys. 次回まで私の名はジミナイです。ありがとうございました。さようなら。